The super yacht sat dead in the water like a $90 million paperweight, and 20 of the country's finest marine engineers had already walked off it in defeat. That was the fact hanging over Harborview Marina on a Tuesday morning in late September when Victoria Hale, founder, billionaire, woman who had never once in her adult life been told she couldn't have something, turned to face the small crowd gathered on the dock and said the words that would change everything. "If anyone here is so smart," she announced, her voice carrying clean across the water, "they're welcome to fix it themselves." The crowd shifted. Phones came up. Nobody moved. Then a small voice cut through the harbor silence like a blade. "My daddy can fix anything." Marcus Cole felt his stomach drop cold. He looked down. Lily, 8 years old, gap-toothed, wearing her purple sneakers with the fraying Velcro, was staring up at Victoria Hale with the kind of certainty that only children and saints possess. Victoria looked down at Lily, then up at Marcus. Her smile was thin and sharp. "Is that so?" It wasn't a question. Marcus felt the heat crawl up the back of his neck. Around him, the crowd had gone very still. He could hear the soft click of phone cameras. He could smell the salt air and the diesel from the harbor, and faintly, the expensive perfume drifting off Victoria's white linen jacket, a scent that had no business being this close to engine grease and working docks. "She's 8, Marcus said quietly. "She doesn't know what she's talking about." "She sounds pretty sure." Victoria tilted her head. 3 weeks, 20 engineers, $2.4 million in consultancy fees. She let that number sit in the air for a moment. "The offer is $200,000 to whoever gets my engines running before sunset. Cash. No strings." Lily's hand found his, small fingers wrapping around 2 of his larger ones, squeezing with a confidence he did not feel. ___quote _9 ___. Her voice was low, just for him. ___quote _10 ___ Marcus looked at his daughter. He looked at the yacht, white and vast and silent against the gray-green water, its hull reflecting the morning sun in long, broken lines. He looked at the crowd, at the phones, at Victoria Hale watching him with the patient amusement of someone who had already decided how this story ended. He thought about the other life, the one he had buried under a different city, a different name, a different set of tools in a dented metal box that had belonged to his father. He thought about how carefully he had built the quiet life he had now. The challenge hung in the air like a noose, and Lily squeezed his hand tighter, but to understand what happened next, what Marcus Cole did, and why, and what it cost him, we need to go back to where it all began. Before you see how this ends, make sure you're subscribed. Stories like this one go up every week, and you don't want to miss what comes next. 6 weeks before the harbor, a Wednesday morning, just after 7. The fun is just beginning. Tell us what city you're from in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe. The tension is rising. Who's watching from where? Like and subscribe to the channel. More to come. Tell us in the comments who's from which country, and give us a like and subscribe. The plot thickens. Let's check our geography. Tell us where you are now. Give the video a thumbs up and subscribe. We're just warming up. Tell us where you're watching from. Give the video a like and hit the subscribe button. The climax is near. Share where you're from, and be sure to subscribe. Events are unfolding rapidly. Write your city in the chat, give it a like, and subscribe so you don't get lost. The juiciest part is yet to come. Let's get started. Get to know each other. Where are you from? Like and subscribe right now. The suspense is building. Tell us where you're watching this episode from, and reward us with a like and a subscribe. The excitement is running high. Tell us what city you're from now. Give us a big like and subscribe to the channel. Marcus Cole's garage smelled like machine oil, burnt coffee, and the particular exhaustion of a man who had been awake since 5. The fluorescent tube above his workbench flickered in its usual rhythm, casting uneven light across a disassembled outboard motor that belonged to his neighbor, Mr. Ferreira. who had paid him $40 and a bag of plantains to bring it back from the dead. Marcus worked without hurrying. His hands moved the way hands do when they've done something 10,000 times, not thinking, just knowing. He was 41 years old, lean in the way that comes from skipping meals rather than gym memberships, wearing the same gray coveralls he'd worn every workday for 3 years. The left knee had a patch, the right pocket had a hole he kept forgetting to fix. The dented red toolbox sat open beside him. His father's initials, J.C., were scratched into the lid in uneven letters, carved by a 12-year-old Marcus with a nail and too much time. Underscore, underscore, quote underscore one underscore underscore. The voice came from the folding chair in the corner where Lily sat cross-legged with her homework spread across a cereal box she was using as a desk. She had his eyes and her mother's stubbornness and a gap between her front teeth that she'd stopped being self-conscious about around age 6. Marcus didn't look up. Lots of reasons. Could be fuel, could be electrical, could be something old that nobody bothered to remove. Lily considered this. Like how my tablet stopped working because of that update? Exactly like that. She went back to her worksheet. Marcus turned the motor housing over in his hands, listening, actually listening, to the way the components shifted inside. There was a sound, faint, a rattle that didn't belong. He found it 4 minutes later, a cracked fuel line, coupling, barely visible, tucked behind a newer assembly like a secret the motor had been keeping. He replaced it with a part from the coffee can on the second shelf, the one labeled MISC, which contained approximately 40 years of accumulated mechanical wisdom in the form of spare fittings, O-rings, and clips. He started the motor. It caught on the first pull, settled into a clean, steady hum. Lily asked, not looking up from her homework. She turned a page. She said it the way she said everything. Matter of fact, no weight behind it. The way children state things they consider simply true. The sky is blue. Saturday is better than Monday. Daddy always fixes things. Marcus wiped his hands on a rag that was past the point of doing any good. He looked at his daughter, at the homework spread across the cereal box, at the crayon drawing pinned to the garage wall beside the light switch, a house, a car, 2 figures standing in front, one tall and one small. He had built something here, small, quiet, held together with spare parts and borrowed time. He told himself it was enough. The past has a smell. Marcus had decided this years ago. It smells like recycled office air and fresh printer ink and the particular brand of cologne that men wear when they want to seem more important than they are. He smelled it the moment Richard Holt walked into his life. It was 5 years earlier. Marcus was 36, working at Meridian Marine Solutions in Boston, a firm that designed propulsion systems for vessels that cost more than most neighborhoods. He had been there 4 years. He was good. He knew he was good in the quiet, unshowy way that people know things they've never needed to announce. Richard Holt was his senior colleague. Silver cufflinks, pressed shirts that never seemed to wrinkle, the kind of easy confidence that came not from competence, but from never once having been doubted in a room. Cole. Holt appeared in the doorway of Marcus's office one Thursday afternoon, hands in his pockets, casual as weather. Underscore, underscore, quote, underscore, 24, underscore, 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 quote, underscore, 25, underscore, underscore, Marcus didn't look up from his drafting screen. The variable pitch assembly was the problem. I found a workaround. Clever. Holt stepped inside. His eyes moved across the screen. Mind if I take a look at the schematics for the presentation Friday? Marcus minded. He couldn't have said exactly why. Something in the way Holt's gaze moved, not curious but calculating, like a man pricing furniture in someone else's house. Marcus said. Holt smiled. Marcus sent them, because that's what colleagues did. because the firm was a team, because he had spent 4 years being careful and professional and twice as thorough as anyone who shared his title. And he believed, in the way that people believe things before the world corrects them, that it was enough. It was not enough. 3 weeks later, Richard Holt presented the Vantage Propulsion redesign at a maritime innovation conference in Newport. His name on the slides, his voice explaining the variable pitch assembly solution, the exact solution Marcus had spent 11 weeks developing. Marcus found out from a colleague who sent him a link to the conference recording with no message attached. Just the link. He sat at his kitchen table and watched 12 minutes of video on his cracked phone screen. His coffee went cold beside him. He didn't touch it. He went to HR the following Monday. The process was thorough, he was told. Everyone would be heard. 6 weeks later, the process concluded. Holt had documentation suggesting the core concepts originated in his preliminary notes. Marcus's counter-evidence was reviewed. The firm appreciated his contributions. His position, however, was being restructured. He cleaned out his desk on a Friday afternoon. The office smelled like fresh paint. They were renovating the floor above. He carried one box. His father's toolbox had been in the car the whole time, waiting in the trunk like it knew. Lily was 3 years old, asleep in her car seat when he drove away. He did not look back at the building. He told himself he never would. He had tried. That part mattered to Marcus, even if no one else ever knew it. After Boston, he spent 8 months making calls, writing emails on the same cracked phone screen, reaching out to former colleagues, former professors, anyone who had once shaken his hand and said he was one of the best they'd seen. The replies came back polite and thin, like paper apologies. "We're not hiring at this time. The position has been filled. We'll keep your resume on file." One former colleague, a man named Dennis, who had sat 3 desks away for 2 years and borrowed Marcus's lunch more than once, picked up the phone. He sounded genuinely uncomfortable. A pause. The sound of a door closing on Dennis's end. "They're saying you were difficult, that there were documentation issues. I can't put my name on something when the story's still the story." Marcus's voice stayed flat. Quote 36, quote 37. He believed Dennis was sorry. That almost made it worse. He stopped making calls after that. He packed what fit in the car, which wasn't much, and drove south until the city felt far enough away. He landed in Portsmouth, a mid-sized coastal town that smelled like brine and fried food and had no memory of him whatsoever. He rented a garage unit from an elderly woman named Mrs. Okafor, who charged him $600 a month and never once asked what he'd done before. He built the repair business with his hands and his father's tools and a hand-lettered sign he taped to the garage door. Cole's Repairs. Motors, appliances, small engines, cash only. The cash-only part was practical. It was also, he admitted to himself in quiet moments, a kind of hiding. People came. Word spread the way it does in neighborhoods where money is tight and trust is currency. Mrs. Delgado's washing machine, the Nguyen family's boat motor, Pastor Reed's backup generator, which had not run since the previous administration. Marcus fixed them all and charged what people could pay and asked no questions. Lily grew. She learned to read in the corner of the garage, sitting on an overturned crate with library books spread across her knees. She learned the names of tools before she learned multiplication. One evening, she held up a spark plug and studied it with the gravity of a scientist. "What does this one do?" "Makes the fire that starts the engine." She turned it over in her small fingers. "So, without this, nothing works?" "Without this, nothing works." She set it down carefully, like it was something precious. "That's a lot of responsibility for something so small." Marcus looked at her. Something moved through his chest, quiet and complicated. He had told himself this life was temporary, a detour, that eventually the right door would open and he would walk back through it. 5 years had passed. The sign on the garage door was sun-faded now, the letters still readable, but barely. like something that had almost made up its mind to disappear. Back to the harbor, back to the Tuesday morning in September, and the challenge still hanging unanswered in the salt air. Marcus accepted. He said it quietly, the way he said most things. "All right." Just the one word. But the crowd heard it, and a sound moved through them, something between a murmur and a held breath. Victoria Hale's assistant appeared from nowhere, pressing a single sheet of paper into Marcus's hands. A liability waiver. Marcus read it carefully while the crowd watched. His lips moved slightly. He signed it with a pen that had been clipped to the assistant's clipboard, handed it back, and followed the dockmaster toward the vessel. Lily watched him go. He didn't look back. He couldn't afford to. The yacht was larger up close. Its white hull rose above the dock like a wall, gleaming and indifferent. The gangway was polished teak, and Marcus's worn work boots felt wrong against it. Too rough, too honest for a surface designed for heels and deck shoes. At the top of the gangway, a man was waiting. Dr. Preston Webb, chief marine engineer contracted by Victoria Hale 3 weeks ago to lead the repair effort. He was 60, silver-haired, wearing pressed khaki trousers and a collared shirt with a company logo embroidered over the chest. He had the look of a man who had been correct about things for a very long time and found the experience comfortable. He looked at Marcus the way a sommelier looks at someone ordering tap water. "Mr. Cole." His voice was measured, professional. "I've been asked to give you full access and a complete briefing. I appreciate that. I want to be transparent." Webb clasped his hands behind his back. "We've run every diagnostic available, the propulsion system, the fuel delivery, the electrical integration. 3 separate teams. The fault doesn't correspond to any known failure pattern in this class of vessel." "When was the yacht last fully operational?" 14 months ago. She went into refit in March. New integrated control systems, updated fuel management, upgraded electrical throughout. Webb gestured toward the stairwell leading below deck. "Everything new, everything certified." "And the old systems?" Webb paused, just briefly. "Replaced." "Removed?" Another pause, slightly longer. "The refit documentation would confirm the specifics." Marcus looked at him steadily. "Do you have the refit documentation?" "We reviewed it during the diagnostic process. Yes." "I'd like to see it." Webb's expression didn't change, but something shifted behind his eyes. A small recalibration, like a man who has just realized the conversation is not going the way he expected. "Of course. I'll have it pulled up." They descended below deck together into the cool, humming silence of a machine that should have been alive and wasn't. The engine room smelled of polished metal and stale air, and, faintly, something older underneath, the ghost of fuel and salt that no refit could fully scrub away. Marcus stood at the threshold and let his eyes move slowly across the space. New components, gleaming panels, LED strips along the ceiling casting everything in clean, even light. His gaze settled on one corner, low, behind a newer assembly, a shadow where the light didn't quite reach. He walked toward it. The valve was old. That was the first thing Marcus noticed. Not broken, not corroded, just old. A manual fuel shutoff. Mechanical and simple, the kind installed in vessels built 20 years before this one was even designed. It sat buried beneath a newer fuel management assembly, like a stone wall hidden inside a renovated building. Someone had built around it instead of removing it, and it was closed. Marcus crouched down. The floor of the engine room was cold through his jeans. He reached in with 2 fingers and touched the valve handle, dusty, stiff, the rubber grip cracked with age. He turned it a quarter rotation. It resisted. He applied steady pressure, the way he applied pressure to everything, without hurry, without drama. It turned. He stood up, crossed to the primary control panel, pressed the engine start sequence. The room shook. A deep, rolling vibration moved through the floor, through the walls, through Marcus's boots, and up into his chest. Then the engines found their rhythm, a full, steady, enormous sound, like something waking from a long sleep. Webb stood absolutely still. His clipboard was at his side. His face had gone the color of old chalk. Quote 60, quote, he stopped. Started again. Quote 61, quote 62, quote, Marcus said, quote 63, quote, Webb looked at the valve, then at the running engines, then at nothing in particular, somewhere in the middle distance. Underscore, underscore, quote, underscore 64, underscore, underscore. He said quietly. It wasn't directed at Marcus. It wasn't directed at anyone. Marcus picked up his father's wrench from the floor and set it back in the dented red box. I was thinking like a mechanic. Webb turned to look at him then. Really look at him, the way people look when they're revising something they thought they understood, Webb asked. He climbed the stairs without waiting for a response. The upper deck hit him with afternoon sun and salt air and the sound of the crowd on the dock below, who had heard the engines and were now making a noise of their own, voices rising, phones swinging toward the yacht, a sound like a wave breaking against something solid. Victoria Hale was standing at the rail. Her white linen jacket was still immaculate. Her expression was not. She looked at Marcus the way a chess player looks at a move they didn't anticipate. "It's running," she said. "It's running." She was quiet for a moment. The engines hummed beneath them, steady and indifferent to the drama above. "The problem?" she asked. A legacy valve from the original hull configuration closed during the refit, probably by accident. The new system couldn't override it because the new system didn't know it existed. Victoria absorbed this. 20 engineers missed it. They were looking for a complicated problem. Marcus closed the latch on his toolbox. Sometimes the answer is simpler than you think. She studied him with an expression that had moved past surprise into something more deliberate, something that looked, unsettlingly, like recognition. "Come with me," she said. "There's something we need to discuss." Victoria's private cabin smelled like cedar and expensive paper and the faint ghost of coffee that had gone cold hours ago. 2 glasses of water sat on the table between them, untouched. The engines hummed somewhere below, steady and alive, a sound that had not existed in this room for 3 weeks. Marcus sat across from her with his toolbox on the floor beside his boot. His work boots looked wrong against the polished wood. He was aware of this. He didn't adjust. "I know who you are," Victoria said. "Not Mr. Cole, the repairman. The other one." Marcus said nothing. "Marcus Elias Cole, Meridian Marine Solutions, Boston, lead propulsion engineer, 2014 to 2018. She folded her hands on the table. "The Vantage Variable Pitch Assembly, your design." The room felt smaller suddenly. "Where did you get that?" "I've been acquiring maritime technology firms for 11 years. Due diligence turns up interesting things." She paused. "Richard Holt presented that design as his own at the Newport conference. He built a consulting career on it. I've known for some time that the attribution was wrong." Marcus's jaw tightened. He looked at the water glass. He didn't touch it. "Then you know what happened at Meridian." "I know what the documentation says. I also know what documentation can be made to say." Her voice carried no apology in it, but no cruelty either, just precision. "The firm closed ranks. The process went nowhere. You left the industry." "I was removed from the industry." The words came out flat, plain. The plainness was the only way he could say them without his voice doing something he didn't want it to do. Victoria was quiet for a moment. Outside, through the porthole, Marcus could see the dock. He could see Lily, still standing where he'd left her, holding the hand of Mrs. Okafor's granddaughter, who had apparently arrived at some point. Lily was watching the yacht with her chin up and her shoulders straight, like a small general waiting for a report. Underscore, underscore, quote, underscore, 90, underscore, underscore, Victoria said, underscore, underscore, quote, underscore, 91, underscore, underscore, Marcus looked away from the porthole. Quote 92 by quote 993, quote 94. Something shifted in Victoria's expression. A small recalibration, respect possibly, or its close neighbor. Richard Holt is presenting at the Maritime Innovation Summit in 3 weeks, she said. He'll be there as a featured speaker. His reputation is intact. His career is intact. She let that sit. You could be in that room. Marcus understood what she was offering, and what she was not offering. She was not offering justice. She was offering proximity to it, which was a different thing entirely. I need to think, he said. Of course. He picked up his toolbox and stood. At the door he paused, one hand on the frame. The 200,000, he said. We agreed before sunset. It'll be transferred tonight. He nodded once and walked out into the light. That night the apartment was quiet in the way that only small apartments get. Every sound contained, close, personal. The refrigerator hummed. A bus passed on the street below. Lily's breathing, slow and even from her room, was audible through the thin wall. Marcus sat on the balcony with the door half open so he could hear her. The city spread out below him, indifferent and glittering. He had a cup of coffee he hadn't touched. It had gone cold 20 minutes ago. He was thinking about the summit, about walking into a room where Richard Holt would be standing at a podium, confident and silver cuff-linked, delivering a keynote built on the bones of Marcus's work, about what it would cost to stand up in that room, about what it would cost not to. The balcony door slid wider. Small feet on the concrete, Marcus said. Lily settled beside him, pulling her knees to her chest. She was wearing the oversized t-shirt she used as pajamas, the one with the faded cartoon rocket on the front. She smelled like strawberry shampoo and sleep. She looked out at the city for a moment. Marcus turned his coffee cup in his hands. Lily considered this with the gravity she applied to most things. He looked at her. She was watching him with his own eyes, waiting, unhurried. Quote, 114, he said. She blinked. Quote, 115. He almost smiled. Almost. Quote, 116. Quote, 117. She tilted her head. Quote, 118. Quote, 119. Quote, 120. He didn't have an answer for that. He looked back at the city. A plane moved silently across the dark sky, its lights blinking in slow, steady rhythm. Go to bed, he said finally. School tomorrow. Lily stood. She put one hand on his shoulder, small, warm, there for just a moment, and went back inside. Marcus sat with the cold coffee and the city sounds and the weight of a decision that had been building for 5 years, compressing itself into this one night, this one balcony, this one chance. He thought about the HR process that went nowhere, the lawyer he couldn't afford, the calls that weren't returned, the industry that had simply, quietly, efficiently, without malice or drama, closed the door and moved on. He thought about Lily's hand on his shoulder. He went inside, found the thrift store suit in the back of his closet, charcoal gray, one size too large in the shoulders, bought 2 years ago for a neighbor's funeral and never worn since. He hung it on the door where he'd see it in the morning. Then he picked up his phone and typed one word to Victoria Hale's number. Confirmed. He set the phone face down on the counter and went to bed. The Maritime Innovation Summit smelled like fresh flowers and old money. White orchids on every table, carpet so thick it swallowed footsteps, the low murmur of 500 people who had never once worried about a utility bill. Marcus stood near the back in his charcoal suit, one size too large in the shoulders. His work boots were the only honest things in the room. Richard Holt took the stage at 11, silver cufflinks, pressed shirt, the easy confidence of a man who had been believed in every room he'd ever entered. He smiled at the audience the way people smile when they own the space they're standing in. Innovation, Holt began, requires courage. The courage to see what others miss, like proper attribution. The voice was Marcus's, steady, carrying farther than he expected across the silent room. Every head turned. Holt's smile didn't fall. It froze, which was worse. Underscore underscore quote underscore 126 underscore underscore Holt's voice was measured, controlled. And you are? Marcus Cole. You worked with me at Meridian Marine Solutions, though I understand if the name doesn't come easily. A ripple moved through the audience. Phones appeared. Marcus felt his stomach tighten, but kept his feet planted on that thick carpet. Mr. Cole. Holt's tone shifted, smooth, practiced, the voice of a man who had handled uncomfortable situations before. Quote, 130. Quote, 31. Marcus said. Quote, 132. Silence. Complete. Total. The kind that has weight. Holt's jaw tightened. That's a serious accusation. It's a serious theft. You have no proof. Holt's voice dropped harder now, the smoothness cracking at the edges. Underscore, underscore, quote, underscore 136, underscore, 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 quote, underscore 137, underscore, underscore. Marcus kept his voice flat. Quote 138. Holt stared at him across the room. Something moved behind his eyes, a calculation, rapid and cold. Quote 139. Holt said. Quote 140. Another pause. Then Holt did something Marcus didn't expect. His shoulders dropped, barely, almost imperceptibly, and he looked away first. That was enough. The room understood what that looked like. 500 people watched a man look away, and they understood. Victoria Hale, seated at the front table, set down her water glass with a quiet, deliberate click. Later, after the murmuring, after Holt walked off the stage and didn't come back, after 3 journalists approached Marcus with business cards, Victoria found him in the corridor outside. Underscore, underscore, quote, underscore, 141, underscore, underscore, she said quietly. Marcus looked at her. Marcus said. Victoria studied him for a long moment. The corridor was empty now, their voices low against the marble walls. Underscore, underscore, quote, underscore 147, underscore, underscore, she said. Marcus looked down at his work boots on the polished floor, at the faint smear of grease on the left toe that he hadn't noticed until now. I know, he said. I'll let you know. He found Lily waiting outside the summit building, sitting on a low concrete step with her backpack in her lap, eating crackers from a small bag with the patience of someone who had learned that waiting for her father was simply part of the day. She looked up when she heard his footsteps. Did you fix it? She asked. Marcus crouched down in front of her. His suit jacket was open, his tie loosened. He looked, she would later tell people, like himself again. Yeah, he said. I think I did. She offered him a cracker. He took it. 6 months later, the garage on Portsmouth's Lower East Side had a new sign. Same handwriting, same position on the door. But the letters were fresh, dark, unhesitating. Cole Propulsion Systems. Below it, smaller, Marine Engineering Consultancy. The cash-only line was gone. Marcus had accepted Victoria's offer. Not immediately. He made her wait 2 weeks, which she later said was the most professionally he had ever behaved. He negotiated his title, his ownership stake in any designs he produced, and one non-negotiable condition. He kept the garage. You want to keep a repair shop, Victoria had said, while running a propulsion division. The repair shop is where I think, Marcus said. The thinking is the job. She had agreed. Richard Holt resigned from his speaking circuit quietly, 3 weeks after the summit. No announcement, no statement. His consulting firm's website went dark sometime in January. Marcus did not follow the story closely. He had other things to follow. Dr. Preston Webb sent a letter, an actual paper letter, in an envelope, addressed to Cole Propulsion Systems. It said, I have been an engineer for 34 years. What you did on that vessel reminded me of why I started. I would welcome the chance to work together. Marcus pinned it to the garage wall, beside the crayon drawing of the house and the 2 stick figures. The dented red toolbox still sat on the workbench. His father's initials, still scratched into the lid. Some things didn't need to change. One evening in early spring, Lily came into the garage while Marcus was reviewing schematics at his workbench. Real schematics now, for a hybrid propulsion system that would go into a vessel twice the size of Victoria's yacht. Lily set a drawing on the corner of the bench without saying anything. Marcus looked at it. A house, a car, two figures in front, one tall, one small, same as always, but this time there was something new. Above the house, in careful crayon letters that she'd clearly worked hard on, Coal Propulsion Systems. She had drawn a sign. Quote, 157, quote, he said. Quote, 158, quote. She climbed onto the stool beside him. Quote, 159, quote, 160, quote. She leaned her head against his arm, and he felt her weight settle there, warm and easy and completely certain of its welcome. The fluorescent light hummed overhead. Outside, the city moved through its evening. The engines of the world kept running. Some things get buried for a long time. Some things, when they finally come back up, come back stronger than they went down. If this story stayed with you, hit like and subscribe. We put out new stories every week. And tell us in the comments, is there something in you that's been buried too long, waiting to come back?